Hello and welcome to Oddspedia Premier League Matchday 34. Can be the weekend where Liverpool get crowned champions in the Premier League, but also we have to talk about the FA Cup. We have to go to Wembley with Tom Rennie. Hello, Tom.
Hello. Yeah, I'm usually quite good on the FA Cup, though I do think the semi-finals are tricky this year, so I'm looking forward to talking about that. And I'm pleased as well that I was working on the Arsenal-Palace game last night, and if Palace had won, Liverpool will be champions going into the weekend. So I'm happy Arsenal found a way not to lose, so Liverpool can win the title on Sunday, which they're going to.
Exactly, and they celebrate with their crowd. So let's start with the FA Cup, guys. Please just press the like or subscribe if you want. Let's go on with the show. Well, FA Cup semi-finals, as always, at Wembley, Saturday. 1, Crystal Palace, Aston Villa. What a great football game. Crystal Palace, always, like always, in the 12th spot in the Premier League, and they are coming in good form to these FA Cup semi-finals. They got a draw against Arsenal or Bournemouth recently in the FA Cup. Not great rivals, we must say. Only Fulham, probably, in the road to Wembley. And for Aston Villa, what to say about them? Amazing season, but they are coming to these semi-finals with that defeat in the very last minute against Man City, probably with the legs very tired. I don't know, Tom, if this could pay at all for Emery's men, because they are playing, I don't know, so many games this season in every single competition.
Yeah, and of course, they've struggled after big games across the campaign as well, as we've discussed a lot on the show. Great semi-final. There's 2 great semi-finals this year. Really unpredictable games. And this one, I am going to pick a winner, obviously, and give you some tips for it, but I do think it could really go either way. Let's start with Crystal Palace. You know, before their couple of games where they conceded 5, which was the Newcastle away game and Man City away game, it was 5 wins in 6 or 6 in 7. They were unbeaten in 7 anyway, whatever way you slice it. The draw was the other result in there. And Oliver Glasner, take away the opening 10 weeks of the season, has again overseen a really solid, occasionally spectacular Crystal Palace season. The trouble is they did have that opening 10 games of the season. Those first few games after the sale of 𝐿𝐴 was kind of always going to be like that. They've had injuries to Adam Wharton, 1 or 2 others across the season, 𝗀𝗏𝗏 in midfield. And so the problem sort of mounted up then. So I do think that suddenly that great form became terrible form. And so the midweek game against Arsenal was actually really important, because you don't want to go into an FA Cup semi-final on the back of 4 games without victory. The Bournemouth game at the weekend was just unwatchable in its awfulness. There was barely a shot in the match. So it was a really important result, really important performance against Arsenal in midweek. Some minutes for 𝐿𝐵𝗵𝗿𝗀 Mateta, who's got a fantastic goal. That chip was his 14th in the Premier League this season. A lot of minutes in the legs for Adam Wharton, who's been injured much of the campaign. Minutes in the legs for Ismaila Sarr, who came on late. And also people like 𝐬𝐭𝐚𝐴, who's not played well this season, to be fair, but will come in with a freshness to him that maybe he wouldn't have had if these games were more important, because frankly, he wouldn't have played. So lots to like about Crystal Palace, lots to like about Oliver Glasner, lots to like about their back line as well. Mark Gay's been fantastic. Jefferson Lerma played in the 3 in midweek, and I thought was pretty good. Normally is when he drops into that role. 𝐿𝐴 has been fantastic this season. Deli Munoz has been really impressive. So lots to like about Palace. They're very, very dangerous. They're very dangerous because they can sit in the low block, they can absorb you all day, and they break about as well as anybody in the league. Top 2 kind of breakers, if you like, are probably Villa and Nottingham Forest, but just behind them may well be Crystal Palace. Plus, they scored another set-piece goal on Wednesday. Only them and Arsenal kind of top of the table in terms of scoring from set pieces this season. That's corners and free kicks. It's 16 for the season. That's just Premier League. So really dangerous in many ways, Palace. In terms of Villa, they'll be annoyed to have lost against Man City on Tuesday night. I think they played pretty well to contain Man City, scored the opening goal, maybe could have got another one. They scored the levelling goal, should have scored the opening goal when Rashford hit the post. And what's good about Villa, I'll go back to Newcastle last weekend. Like, the comeback, the bounce back from the aggregate loss against Paris Saint-Germain was very impressive. But what Unai Emery could do, because we spoke earlier on about the lack of rotation, or maybe the the poor performances after big games is that John McGinn started flagging, Marco Asensio started flagging, and he can bring on Onana and he can bring on Ramsey, who would be starters for most teams in the Premier League. He can bring them on, bring that renewed vigor and energy and get them to win the game. So loads to like about both of these two teams. And there's some interesting bets. I am going to pip for Aston Villa to win this game. You get them at 2.15. So it goes to show you it's a very evenly matched game. I know a few weeks ago, Palace picked up a very convincing win over Aston Villa. And so maybe they have a bit of a hoodoo over them. I wouldn't discount that. But I think in terms of big games this season, Palace have not played many, if any, frankly, games with much pressure. Villa have had pressure all season long. PSG was pressure. Newcastle last week was pressure. Loads of games in the group stage, lots of pressure. And they have been able to win those matchups. Even Man City in midweek, where they played pretty well, that was a high-pressure game. Didn't go on to get something from it, but navigated it really well. I think Ollie Watkins comes in to start. Marcus Rashford goes to the bench, but if you can take off Watkins and bring on Rashford, that's a great rotation to have. There's a real hunger there with the two Aston Villa forwards. And I just think they're going to have too much big game experience, big player experience, and they will win this game. So take Villa over Crystal Palace in the 90. I think it's going to be pretty tight. I don't think it'll be a goal fest. I look at the under 3.5 goals in the game market. It screams 2-1 Villa, frankly, is what it screams. So you can find a group bet of 1-0, 2-1, 3-1. On most bookies this morning, you can find that one. But take both teams to score under 3.5, Villa to win it, and I think you'll make some money there.
All right, Capstan Slugger is telling us draw is always a safe bet when it comes to a cup game, and Mobin is going for Aston Villa double chance, and both teams to score. The double chance doesn't pay that much for Aston Villa since they are the favorites into this game, and the other tie is very one-sided according to the bookies, but perhaps it's a good opportunity to go for a surprise. Nottingham Forest, Man City this season, Nuno was able to beat Pep Guardiola, but now it looks like the citizens are grabbing these wins that they need to qualify for the Champions League. Both teams had won the last Premier League game, Tom, and for the bookies, there is no question. Actually, it's Man City, the team that is going to qualify for the final.
And they're on the charge, Man City, and we knew they would be. The trouble is their dip mid-season was bigger than ever, and that's why they're not in the title race, and that's why Liverpool will be champions this weekend. But look at the recent results. 5-2 Crystal Palace, 2-0 Everton, 2-1 against Aston Villa, victory over Leicester to be expected. Only the Manchester derby, a game they haven't won in the last 5. And Man City really interesting because the signings they made in January have started to really become fixtures in this team. I think that Omar Marmoush is going to be a fantastic player in the Premier League next campaign. They found a way to play without Erling Haaland, who's injured. They found a way to cover for Kevin De Bruyne. I know there's a bit of discomfort maybe in the camp with the way that Kevin De Bruyne is leaving the club. His statement last weekend about, well, they never offered me a contract was a bit off and rum, I thought, from him. The week before, it seemed like it was a mutual thing, and now it seems a bit like it isn't. So that suggests that Kevin De Bruyne is not happy with the options he is getting for his future. He doesn't want to go to Saudi. He don't want to go to America. He wants to play in a proper competitive league, and that may well be in the Premier League with someone else, or if there's some money in Spain or Italy for him. I probably doubt that, considering what he's probably on. But I think it's decided that he doesn't want to kind of take the road travel to lesser quality leagues, and that's dangerous for Forest here, because Kevin De Bruyne will want to make a point now. And I think maybe that has been lacking from his game for a little while. So they've come to the fore, Man City. They are covering well for the injuries to Haaland and Stones and Ake and famously Rodri. They're getting performances out of people like Omar Marmoush. They're scoring goals. They look defensively reasonably sound as well. Though I have doubts about the goalkeeper in the absence of Ederson. Ortega will continue in goal. I don't think he's covered himself in glory this season. There was some talk he might be the number one at City. I think that's for the birds. So look, they go into it favourites for obvious reasons. They score lots of goals and they're looking rejuvenated with Marmoush and O'Reilly and one or two others. In terms of Forest, I mean, they're continually undervalued. I mean, 4.93 is a joke. It is a joke, considering just how many games they have won this season where you didn't expect them to win, how many performances they're put in this season as underdogs. And look, this game is like a proper yin and yang. Like, it's two completely opposed playing styles. Everyone watching this knows exactly how this game is going to go. City are going to have 75% possession in this game, if not more. And that plays perfectly into the tactics of both teams. And on the counter, we mentioned Palace, we spoke about Villa. Nottingham Forest, on the break, are exceptional. And everyone but 𝐬𝐿𝐴 from their strongest team is going to be fit. So it will be Elanga on the break. It will be Hudson-Odoi on the break. It will be Morgan Gibbs-White on the break. It will be into Chris Wood, then 3 runners off him. It will be incredible hard work from Elliot Anderson and Ryan Yates or Gonzalez in midfield, whoever gets the nod. You know exactly how they're going to play. But if City's attack breaks down and Forest are in a low block, they could be in tremendous, tremendous trouble. So, like, I still think City are going to get through here because it's Man City. It's a big game. It's end of season. I still think they're probably going to win the FA Cup. And worries me, Champions League qualification, the same amount of wins as Arsenal and the FA Cup. And everyone talks about their worst season in a decade. To be fair, the standards are ludicrously high. So take City at 1.78. I think they will win it. I think it'll be quite a narrow victory. 1-0 is more than likely the scoreline. So look at the under 2.5 market. If City are to win it, I think they'll probably keep a clean sheet. So City win to 0. If you go Forest, the odds are brilliant for that. And again, if you go for Forest, look at the under again. 1-0 Forest as it was at the City Ground a few weeks ago. Wouldn't be surprised to see that happen again. But for me, the FA Cup final is going to be Villa and Manchester City.
Well, we saw this game this week, and we saw also a big rivalry between the Spanish managers, between Emery and Guardiola. It looks like they don't like each other. Well, I was hoping, Tom, you tell me Forest. Steve is telling us over 3.5 goals and both teams to score for 𝐬𝐵𝗵. And PC is giving some pride to Kevin De Bruyne to score or assist. Great. 2 games in the FA Cup, one on Saturday, one on Sunday. And now we switch to the Premier League again. And I'm sure maybe now we are in the Premier League, guys. We saw already 2 games in this match day 34. Remember, Man City beat Aston Villa in the very last minute, and Arsenal drew with Crystal Palace. So with a point, Liverpool are champions, but this is happening on Sunday, and first on Saturday, we have especially one interesting game, which is Chelsea-Everton, because Chelsea are out right now of the Champions League spots. They are 6th, 2 points behind Newcastle. So, Tom, they must beat Everton. They lost to City, but they were in good form before that defeat, and luckily for Chelsea, because they scored the winner in the very last minute against Fulham. Remember that also Chelsea can win a trophy this season. They are playing the conference semifinals next Thursday.
Yeah, and they haven't really been tested at all in the Conference League. The final will be tough against Fiorentina or Betis. They're 2 pretty decent teams, and so whoever gets through of that will be a tough challenge in the final, but they'll win the final, the semi-final with ease in a couple of days. Will Chelsea across the 2 legs. But look, going into this game, the first thing to say is that Chelsea's home record this season has been undervalued and underrated. They have lost just 2 games at home this season. That's an incredibly impressive record. If their away form across the campaign was as good as they were in the last 5 minutes against Fulham last week, they may well already be in the Champions League for next season. Could even have been in a title race, as they threatened at some point in November and December. A lot of Chelsea fans disgruntled, unhappy with Enzo Maresca. Don't like the playing style, don't like the boring way they play football, the slow build-up, the lack of incision, all of that. So I wonder what happens with Enzo Maresca wherever Chelsea finish this season. So it was a vital win last week, and this would be a vital win this week. I think the return of Nicholas Jackson's been important. I know he wasn't amazing against Fulham last week, but they don't really have anyone else who can play that role. And 𝐿𝐭𝐿𝐿 has been a monumental flop since coming to the Premier League. Everyone else they've played in that position hasn't really cut it. Still concerns about the form of Cole Palmer as well, who carried this team on his back for 18 years, but his numbers have gone down quite a lot recently. I know he had an assist. I think it was in the Ipswich Town game a couple of weeks ago, but hasn't really been at his best for some months now. So we'll have to see how that pans out. But Chelsea at home this season, very difficult to beat, and I would not be betting on a Chelsea defeat in this game. Absolutely. In terms of Everton, David Moyes has come in and he's seen them through. I don't think they've been particularly impressive, Everton. I think the win over Forest was kind of classic David Moyes victory. He's done a thing for Everton where he's kept them in games in the same way that Sean Dyche used to, but he's added a bit of attacking incision that was totally lacking under the previous manager. But they can't score more than 1 goal in a game. So to win, they have to keep a clean sheet. If they don't, then they will not win that game of football. And I think it's 14 draws this season, 1-1 against West Ham, 1-1 against Arsenal, 1-0 defeat against Liverpool, 1-0 win over Nottingham Forest. You ain't going to get many goals in Everton games. And beyond the Man City game, there's only been 1 goal either per team or for an individual team across the last run of matches. So look, frankly, it screams draw. It screams draw this game because Everton, 14 draws this season. Chelsea, though, only 2 defeats, have picked up, I think, 6 or 7 draws at home this campaign. Both lack incision. Everton have a really good defence. It screams 1-1 draw. Draw on its own is 4.1. If you are going to pick a winner, go for Chelsea and go for under scorelines. This game is not going to be thrilling, but it's going to be stressful and important for Chelsea because they got to win. They have to win probably every game to make the Champions League next season. If they don't, I wouldn't say it's financial Armageddon, but there's certainly going to be significant sales this summer necessary to cover the lack of Champions League money. So Chelsea win. Yeah, fine. Take that as the only winner. If you're looking for a Chelsea victory, look at the group bet of 1-0, 2-0 or 3-0, 2.88. I would discount the 3, but 1-0 and 2-0 together is quite nice at 2.88. Under 2.5 and Chelsea win is 3.5. That is what it's going to be. A narrow Chelsea win or a 1-1 draw.
Okay, both things to score no for Mobin, and also Steve thinks this is going to be an very important game at Stamford Bridge. Absolutely irrelevant the next game, Brighton, West Ham, 2 teams that seem gone this season. Tom, they are not competing anymore. Brighton lost to Brentford, and it's only 1 point since the defeat in the FA Cup with Forest. And what to say about your West Ham? They couldn't even beat Southampton.
Yes. I mean, let's start with Brighton. I think your analysis is absolutely right. These 2 teams, the season is over. I don't think necessarily the players have given up, but I do think that everyone is thinking about next season now. Like Brighton had some good moments this season, but have drifted away. I think 8th is going to be beyond their grasp for Conference League qualification, or 7th for Europa League qualification. I think we saw that last week. Maybe there was a bit of a lack of motivation in the game against Brentford. There was a lack of motivation at Palace. They were poor at home against Villa. Plus, they've in this game, they lost 𝐬𝐭𝐴. Nasty bit of work at times, 𝐬𝐭𝐴. Got sent off last week. Should have had more red cards this season. Webster, we know Igor is out. Rutter is out. Milner has barely played this season. Van Hecke is doubtful for this game. So all sorts of things to concern the manager, Fabian 𝗀𝐻𝐿er. Suspensions and injuries. We know they can rotate and one player replaces another and you don't even know because they kind of go into the Brighton system. But there is something missing right now, and I think it's something to play for. And I think no wins in 5 sort of reflects that. But they do need to win this game, Brighton, in terms of building for the future with 𝗀𝐻𝐿er. I don't think he is going to go, but I do think the fans of Brighton rightly would be thinking, is he the right man? Are we going the right direction? He's not 𝗀𝗏𝗼. He's not even Graham Potter, who is now West Ham manager. You wonder whether it has been a massive success this season or whether they might start that slide down the table, which eventually they will in the Premier League. We thought it would have come already. It hasn't come yet. It will come at some point. It comes for everybody. In terms of West Ham, I mean, what a Charlie Foxtrot it has been this season. My concern for West Ham is that Graham Potter has brought nothing at all. I think the only metric that's improved since 𝐬𝐭𝐚𝐲 has left is they've stopped conceding so many goals. They're still conceding goals, though. Like they were conceding over 2 goals a game under Lopetegui. It's now about 1.5, 1.6, I think it is now. That's a very, very minimal improvement. It's like going on a diet and you're on 3,000 calories a day. You're now on 2,900 calories a day. It's still too many calories, So I think that needs to be fixed. But look, I think that the mitigating circumstance that so many of these West Ham players need to go. I think everyone's accepted that now. The squad build last summer was poor. The issues that David Moyes left at West Ham were not addressed in the summer window last time out. And that has led to the issues they've got here. The midfield has 7 potential possibilities in it. Every single one of them is one-paced. If you don't have ball carriers from midfield in the Premier League, you ain't going to do well. And there isn't a single West Ham player who can carry the ball up the field. Alvarez can't do it. Souček can't do it. Ward-Prowse can't do it. Guido can't do it. On and on. And that's the issue. And that's been the most significant one. The second one being they've not had a striker all season. And Nicholas Füllkrug last week with his comments about West Ham, he was absolutely right with what he said. However, he has been injured all season, so I might button it into I've contributed. But there we are. So West Ham are a mess defensively, in the midfield, and offensively. Brighton have checked out, and they've got a bunch of injuries. You got to go Brighton win because West Ham are just so bad. They're just so bad. So Brighton at 1.69, I would take that. They also have a good record against West Ham in their Premier League history. I do think West Ham will score 1, but I think Brighton will score 2. So Brighton and both teams to score doubles your money. I wouldn't discount the draw as well, only because both teams have nothing really to play for. 1-1 wouldn't surprise me. So a draw on both teams to score is a quite generous 5, but I would shade for Brighton in a pretty unentertaining game of football.
Don't watch this. Keep it simple. Brighton to win, and 𝗵𝐸 is telling us that Brighton drawing to Leicester and West Ham to Southampton show us that their season is gone. Indeed. Yeah. Well, next one, much more on stake. Newcastle Ipswich for the local team. Of course, they are chasing the Champions League spots. They are still 5th despite the defeat 4-1 at Villa Park, but they were coming from 5 consecutive wins in the Premier League. The win at the Carabao Cup was a push for them, for sure. Tom, we should go for Newcastle to win, but it pays nothing. It's only 1.2.
Yes, that's the concern. The Newcastle are going to win this game. And just briefly on Ipswich, I won't waste people's time on it too much, but they are down more or less currently. They will be confirmed down in terms of points this weekend. They're 15 points behind West Ham with 15 points to play for. So the only way to stay up now will be West Ham lose every single game, which is not impossible, but then Ipswich will need to turn around a goal swing of 20 goals. So they are down. They're going to go down. They're pretty much down now, but it will be confirmed by points this weekend if they don't win this game at Newcastle. So let's not waste too much time on them. They've been dreadful. In terms of Newcastle, the Villa game last week was a shock. We did tip Villa to win, so we knew that would happen. But the shock was the manner of the way Newcastle went down. They were out-fought. They were out-muscled by Villa, which is so rare for the Newcastle midfield. You do not see that very often. And there are some concerns about 𝐬𝐭𝐴𝐳𝐷 as well. There was concerns going into the Carabao Cup final a couple of weeks ago. How fit is he? Got taken off in the game, wrapped him in cotton wool for this one. Hasn't quite looked right for a good few weeks. So that's going to be interesting. 7 games in a row, they've named the same starting 11, Newcastle. That was the story at Villa last week. That won't be the same here. I think Anthony Gordon comes back into the starting 11. Harvey Barnes doesn't quite do enough. So I'd bring Gordon in to replace Jacob Murphy. I do wonder whether there is a possibility that Callum Wilson might start. If there are some doubts about Isak, bring him on later in the game as opposed to start him, or maybe just rest him because Ipswich is so bad. You can give him a nice 2 weeks off, get him fully ready for tougher tests to come. Newcastle this season have been big scorers when they've won as well. In recent times, big scorers when they've won. 5 against Palace, 4 against Man U, 3 against Leicester. That's what you've got to follow here. A Newcastle win is obviously worth very little at 1.24. So go for a big Newcastle win. And everyone fancies that. Newcastle went over 3.5 goals in the game is only 2.25, which I thought was shocking considering it. Put the handicap on as opposed to the line in the goals, minus 3.5 just for Newcastle, 4.5. That is better. I think it's probably the first bet you can really make. The other one you can make is Isak to score and Newcastle to win. It's only 1.5, but if you double that up with a minus 3.5 handicap, that's when you start making some money. So Isak scores, Newcastle win, minus 3.5. That's where the value is. I think they're going to win this 5-0. So look for variants of that.
Minus 1.5 for 𝗵𝐸, 3-1 for 151. For instance, I was reading some rumors linking the lab to Man United, for instance, or Osimhen. So it's one of the only quality player you've been saying the whole season for Ipswich Town. Perhaps he stays in the Premier League. Well, Southampton, another team joining Ipswich in the Championship, playing at home against Fulham. Of course, it's impossible to back Southampton, but also Fulham, they won't go to Europe, but still they are competing much more than Brighton or West Ham lately, Tom, even if also probably the KO in the FA Cup hurt them. Since then, it's 3 defeats in the last 4 games.
Yeah, and it's a shame for Fulham because it's on. The Conference League is on. I think if I was looking at one of the teams to finish 8th now, I'd only pick Bournemouth or Fulham. I would probably discount Brighton from that race, only because they've been so inconsistent in recent weeks, and 8th is going to get you there. 5 Champions League, 2 in the Europa League. That leaves you 1 for the Conference League. And if Fulham make the Conference League, they can win the Conference League. And Fulham are the kind of team that we want in the Conference League. We don't want Chelsea in it. That's a joke. We wanted Leicester. We wanted West Ham. We want Fulham. We want Bournemouth. We want Brentford. We want Palace. Those are the teams going into that competition who could possibly win it. And it'd be a great story for their supporters. And of course, Fulham were Europa League losing finalists a decade or so ago, maybe longer than that now, 2009, was it something like that? So it would be fantastic to see them make it. But they have to win games like this, and they should win a game like this. I will just say briefly on Southampton, I did think they were quite good at West Ham last week. I think with Simon Rusk in charge now, there's a sort of freedom about Southampton. They know they're down, and there was a few good performances from the likes of Flynn Downs last week and Sulemana and Paul 𝗀𝗀𝗀 and one or two others. I don't think many Saints players will be in the Premier League next season. There might be players that are playing for that possible future. I do think there are players that are playing for their Southampton future. And I was quite impressed with their performance against West Ham last week. The West Ham are crap. That was significant. But I do think Southampton's relaxed nature, in a way, was shown a bit against West Ham last week. So we might get a bit of that here. Fulham, normally when they need to win, don't. That's my only concern when it comes to Fulham. It's 4 defeats in their last 5. If they could have won 2 more of those games, they'd be in a commanding position for European qualification next season, which is the hope, which is the dream, which is the aspiration of Fulham right now. I think 𝐿𝐿𝐴𝐵𝐻 has been great. Scored last week against Chelsea. I think defensively they're pretty strong. And I think offensively, you've always got their rotation of Rodrigo Muniz and Raul Jimenez, who are both fit going into this game. So how do I see it? You've got to go Fulham win. 1.7 is actually quite generous, considering Southampton have been so poor this season and only have 11 points. So maybe don't be drawn in by their performance against West Ham. Fulham to win it. I think you've got to win it to 0. It's rare that Fulham win to 0, but you can find that at W Money, which I quite liked. The only reason I would back that is Saints don't score many goals, and they've been pumped a few times at home this season, looking at Villa at home 3-0 a couple of weeks ago. And then to make some money, you've got to go handicap. Minus 1.5, which is 2-0 or more for Fulham, 2.75. They do have goals in them. Saints are generally rubbish. Worst team in the country still, and Fulham have something to play for. We either get Fulham, shoot themselves in the foot, or they win comfortably. I'll take win comfortably at minus 1.5.
Yeah, a lot of people see this game as a skip, as a knockout breaker, actually, for Moving or for Garrick, for instance. Next one is Wolves Leicester. Here, the odds are kind of appealing for Wolves, 1.6, because in this case, even if they have nothing to play for, they are ending the season on a high, beating Man United. Sarabia scoring his 5 consecutive wins for them. What to say about Leicester is 1 point in the last 10 games. Horrible.
And I know they're not at home today and this weekend, but I'll just mention not scored at home since December. It's April. Like it's just it's mind blowing to me. I won't waste people's time on Leicester too much, but the hiring of 𝐵𝗵 Nistelrooy was a joke. The hiring of Steve Cooper before him was a joke. The transfer window just gone was a joke. The transfer window in the summer was a joke. The way they play is a joke. Wout Faes is a joke. Jamie Vardy at 38 playing up front in the Premier League is a joke. I mean, everything that Leicester have done for 18 months has been wrong. And there are mitigating circumstances to that. Enzo Maresca leaving them in the lurch, all that sort of stuff, sure. But this has been maybe the most humiliating Premier League campaign since Derby. Back in 2007-8, because at least with Southampton, we knew they were pitiful all the way through, and they never had the squad for it and all that. I think Leicester have just found ways to embarrass themselves over and over again, and to appoint 𝐵𝗵 Nistelrooy, who is essentially just on like an autograph tour in the Premier League. Just a real joke. And Wolves, look, I'm not taking this away from Vitor Pereira and what he's done, but these fixtures have been beautiful for Wolves. If you want to stay in the Premier League, Southampton, West Ham, Ipswich, Tottenham, and then recently away at Man United. It's most of the bottom 6 apart from them. They've played in the last 5 games, picked up wins in all of them. Very commendable. I think the Vitor Pereira thing will blow up at one point, but tremendous job he's done. I know the fans like him. I know the players like him. This summer, Matheus Cunha will go. I wouldn't be surprised to see Strand Larsen go. They've got to rebuild again. They'll struggle again, but for the moment, good times for Wolves, and they're going to win this game because Leicester are so bad. 1.6 for a Wolves win is quite nice when you consider they've won 5 in a row. Can't see Leicester scoring for the reasons we mentioned. I know they've scored in away games recently, but at home they have struggled. In fact, in the last 5 games, the 2 goals at Brighton, the only goals they've scored in 5. So Wolves to win to 0 at 2.75. United couldn't score against them. West Ham couldn't score against them. Ipswich and Saints both scored 1. The Saints one was a kind of late consolation as well. So defensively, they've been quite good. Win to 0 at 2.75. First reasonable handicap is minus 1.5, which is 2.5. Take the Wolves win, at least 2-0. And I wouldn't be surprised to see it more. Do look at the 4s and the 5s. I think it's going to be a tonking of Leicester by Wolves.
Wolves win 2-0, for instance. Next game, Tom, before I sneeze again, is Bournemouth, Man United. I guess here we can only go for Bournemouth. Man United only thinking about Athletic and not thinking at all about Premier League. Look at these odds, only 1.7 for Bournemouth to win.
Yeah, I mean, my only concern, again, it's been a kind of similar story that in another season where Tottenham or Man U or West Ham were good, as they have been for the best part of the last kind of half decade, Bournemouth would have blown European qualification already. They're stumbling at the wrong moment. They should have won at West Ham, didn't. Should have beat Crystal Palace last week, couldn't get ahead of steam going. And I just wonder whether some of the injuries that have been dogging them across the season, maybe they helped them in a way. It's a weird way of looking at it, but like because so many people were out, the manager couldn't tinker too much. And I just wonder now with almost everyone back bar Sinisterra and Unal, and I think Ryan Christie will remain missing as well. But beyond that, he's been changing and chopping and trying things out. Players have overperformed this season. And they've just suddenly come off at the exact wrong moment. Bournemouth, if they win 3 or 5, will make the Europa or Conference League next season. For me, I'd quite fancy them to do it over Fulham and over Brighton, but they've got to win games like this, and I'd probably expect them to win a game like this. The former Justin Kluivert has sort of fallen off a cliff a little bit. The goals of Evan Nielsen have been good, but didn't score against Palace last week, and maybe the brilliance of his return just kind of oversold the fact that he's still struggling with an injury. It's still his first year in the Premier League, and defensively too. Like all we talk about now with Bournemouth is who's going to get sold. All we talk about now is Howson to Liverpool and where's 𝐿𝐭𝐻𝐿 going. And that can dog a team at the end of the season because you're playing for something in terms of qualification, but you're thinking, oh, half this team's going to go next year. They're going to get picked off by those with big money. Maybe we're seeing that. I don't know. Just 1 in 5 might reflect it. But Man United, you made the point. They don't care about the league. Have they cared about the league for all season? I don't know, but they certainly don't care about that. They care about winning the Europa League. If you do that, you're in the Champions League next season. They could finish as low as 17th. And be in the Champions League next season, which would be incredible. And Amorim has sort of said, I don't care about this. And you can see in his team selection against Wolves last week, anyone with even the slightest of problems, he will replace with somebody from the youth team. And with that semi-final coming up on the Thursday next week, he's going to risk absolutely no one here. I doubt Bruno Fernandes will start. I'd be surprised if anyone he thinks who's going to be in his starting 11 on the Thursday is going to start this weekend. And that means that Man United are going to lose their 16th game in the Premier League this season. You just can't see them navigating a way to victory. I think it'll be very similar to Wolves last week. A couple of the young talents, 𝐻𝐿𝐿 will have some moments, and everyone will be like, oh, good on him. Good on him having a game for Manchester United, like it's some sort of charity club. But Bournemouth will go on to win. Bournemouth win at 1.73 is quite nice. Take that. A lovely group bet here of 1-0, 2-0, or 3-0. So I think Bournemouth will win. I struggle to see a Man United goal. They've struggled for goals across the campaign. That comes in at 4. Bournemouth win to 0 is 3.5. The only other score that I will put in here is the draw, only because Bournemouth themselves, when the pressure is on, have struggled. And Man United, if they bring on Bruno Fernandes for the last 20, if they're 1-0 down, you can see them nicking a 1-0 draw.
Great Europa League semifinals, by the way. Man United, Athletic, super tight. And the last game, the party at Anfield, should be the Champions Party when they win the trophy. Liverpool, Tottenham, and Liverpool, as we were talking in the past weeks, Tom, the best of the season is gone for them, and they were just waiting for this moment just to leave the trophy. And for Tottenham is exactly the same as for Man United. They are only thinking about the Europa League, and even for them it's going to be easier to get to the final in Bilbao since they are facing the underdog, Bodo Glimt, but all the forces are in Europe for Tottenham.
Yeah, absolutely. Like in terms of Liverpool, we'll start with them. There was a couple of stumbles against Newcastle in the Carabao Cup in recent weeks where they weren't great. They were out the Champions League against PSG, lost against Fulham in the league unexpectedly, and you're a bit like, oof, in another season, this wobble could cost them. But they've come back last couple of games against really good opponents in terms of nothing to play for, West Ham and Leicester, and picked up nervy, but relatively comfortable wins. West Ham didn't offer much and Leicester offered absolutely nothing, really. Liverpool could have won that 10-15-0, the amount of chances they created. But this is the party. This is the game. A draw gets it done. They will not lose against Tottenham this weekend. In terms of Tottenham, briefly, you mentioned it there. It's all about 𝐬𝐭𝐴𝐽 on Thursday. We know it's likely 𝗵𝗶𝗀 will go. He doesn't care about the 𝐬𝐭𝐴𝐽. Is it, 17 losses, I think, in the Premier League this season? An extraordinary amount of losses. No, 18 now. It was 17 going to that game. To lose 18 games in the season is just jaw-dropping for anybody, let alone a team like Tottenham who would have fancied themselves as potential Champions League qualifiers. Of course, you wouldn't be surprised to see them win the Europa League in a month or so from now. So to lose that many games is somewhat shocking. There are the circumstances across the season of the amount of injuries they have had, but I think everyone's grown bored of 𝗵𝗶𝗀, and 𝗵𝗶𝗀 has grown bored of Tottenham. And this summer, I think there'll be massive changes, including with the manager. Again, like Man United, any doubts about any players that don't play in this game, if they're going to beat 𝗵𝗶𝗀 to have got to the Europa League semi-final. So like, not a joke, just because they're a small team. I wouldn't play them, so I wouldn't play 𝗀𝐿𝐴𝐵𝐴, I wouldn't play Son, I wouldn't be playing Bentancur. I doubt very much Romero and Mickey van der Ven will play a full 90 minutes here. He's taken them off at half-time in games recently just to kind of build up their fitness and make sure they're not injured. So all of that leads to a big Liverpool win. Liverpool win on its own, 1.28. Sure, take it. Can't see Tottenham scoring in this game. Can't see much Tottenham motivation in this game. So Liverpool win to 0, 2.63. If you do think Tottenham can score a goal, go for them first goal. Liverpool go on to win it. A lot of times across the last few years, we have seen it. We've won the bet, I think, 3 times this season. A Liverpool to win from behind. That comes in normally around 8, normally around 9. I've not got that odd right now, but it will come up. And nearer the game, I might take a punt on that. But then you've got to look at Liverpool comfortable victories. If they don't concede early, they'll win 1-0, 2-0, 3-0 or more. The 1-0, 2-0, 3-0 group bet is 3.75. But I think they're going to win this. Big party, late goals, 2, 3, 4, 5-0, and confirmed champions on Sunday.
Congratulations to Liverpool. Liverpool big win. Liverpool win 2-0, 1, 2, or 3-0. Well, no one thought about Liverpool this season to leave the trophy. So kudos to Arne Slot, big underdog, and they are lifting the trophy already in April. So we have to cheer them, of course, and praise them for their great season. Well, guys, remember, of course, that we've been saying a lot of tips, but you can also post your tips in Oddspedia and win some cash prizes. And also, we have the competition rivals for you, where you can challenge your friends. Nottingham Forest, Brentford. Do you have a tip for this?
It's later in the week, so I'm just saying go Forest in that game. We can't look at it too much because they're both going to play. But I'm sending it over anyway. It's on Thursday next week. It's all rearranged, but we'll probably do it in next week's show. But I've thrown it in. Take the Forest double at 2.2.
Okay, this is just your cue for the next video next
I'm just
week.
so prepared. I'm so prepared.
Exactly.
I'm already on next week.
Let's talk about match day 37 or 38. Well, this is what I told you before, the tipster competitions going on. And now we see our beautiful website. Do you know, Tom, you can also check the odds for the next Pope in our website. We are having actually a lot of visits.
Who are you going for? Sam Allardyce or?
You go for Jose Mourinho, no? Jose Mourinho would fit better. You go for special bets, and you have the next Pope, and there you have.
Oh.
And there you go. You have to go to Novelty, World Novelty.
Hey. Who are you taking, Edu? Who's going to be next Pope?
Next, it's always an underdog. It's been the last 3 times a big underdog. So go hard, go odds.
Yeah. It's all about the swing voters. It's all about the swing voters in Iowa. That's how we decide it.
Exactly. I watched the movie the other day, actually, the 𝐿𝐴𝐴𝐽.
Oh, yeah.
Great Ralph
documentary
Fiennes.
now, isn't it?
Yeah, actually, it's like a documentary. Maybe Ralph Fiennes is in the Vatican at this moment in time. Who knows?
Yeah, who knows?
Well, Tom, safe bet.
You don't want on the Pope or the football?
On the Pope. On the safe bet, we know which one it is about the Pope.
Yes, the safe bet for the football this weekend. I'll take Newcastle to beat Ipswich Town. There's a few safe bets this weekend, which I'll reflect in my ACCA, but I think Ipswich Town are so poor. Newcastle need the victory. Newcastle to win, 1.55. That's pretty safe.
And the ACCA then?
I'm going wild this week. I've won a few ACCAs in recent weeks. I think I'd won 4 in a row before last week, where West Ham let me down on a double, which was like 5, which was really good odds. But I'm taking 5 winners this weekend, which is really extravagant for me.
Yeah.
So I'm going Newcastle to win, Wolves to win, Brighton to win, Southampton to win, and Liverpool to win. That's 5 winners who are all favourites, most at home, and comes in at 6.05. Go wild with me.
Southampton to win. Now, that cannot be possible. It's 5.25.
Throwing it in.
Fulham to win.
Should be Fulham. Sorry, it should be Fulham.
Should be Fulham. So,
should I do it again like it's not live? I'll do it again.
No, it's okay. Switch Southampton for Fulham, and there you go.
My ACCA
the odds
this week
for Southampton to win are 5 right now.
The ACCA this week is Newcastle, Wolves, Brighton, Fulham, Liverpool. That's the ACCA this week, not Southampton. Who wrote that? Me? Oh, sorry about that. I meant to put Fulham, okay? What do you want from me? It's been a long day.
Okay, guys. Bye-bye. Thank you, Tom.